The midway weekend of the Super Touring season in Cleveland was a story of what might have been. Australian Neal Crompton returned from a 3-race hiatus on the points, but skidded out of a shot at victory. Former points leader Dominic Dobson started from pole, but crashed out of one race and suffered from the damage in race 2. David Donahue stared a $50,000 bonus squarely in the eye with a win in race 1. But in race 2, he blinked, and all was lost. It's time to get back on track in Toronto. From the shores of Lake Erie in Cleveland, we move to the shores of Lake Ontario and our first race in Canada. Welcome to races 11 and 12 of the Super Touring Championship for 1997. Hi everybody, I'm Bob Varsho. Welcome to the grounds of the Canadian National Exhibition here in Toronto, Canada. You know, in all the confusion in Cleveland and David Donahue's self-confessed brain fade that cost him a $50,000 Dodge Challenge bonus, it's easy to forget that Donahue remains in the lead for the 1997 Drivers' Championship. Coming into this round of the season in Toronto, Donahue leads Peter Cunningham, winner of race number 10 in Cleveland, by 11 points, followed by Dominic Dobson and Neal Crompton, all in the running for the championship. In the Michelin Manufacturers Cup race, it appears it will be Honda versus Dodge down to the final laps of the season in Laguna Seca, California. But the business at hand is 2 races on the streets here in Toronto. Let's get down and meet our pole sitter now, standing by with Chris McClure.
Bob, David Donahue may have his work cut out for him. He starts a little bit further back there. Dominic Dobson sits up front. Good opportunity, tight course, the sort of exercise you've seen before.
Well, it is. You know, we raced for Toronto, and I did well. I was on the pole there. What we need to do is turn this pole into a win. We're looking at a championship here, and all I got to do is keep these guys behind me.
Is it a matter of consistency as much as wins the rest of the way with things as tight as they are?
Well, they really are. We've had a couple of tough goes in the PPG car last few races, so it is going to be consistency. It's about finishing races and finishing them well.
Well, we're in the stretch drive. Dominic Dobson can be the champion, but he can't afford too much more bad luck.
No question about that, Chris. There's the Cadillac Catera pace and safety vehicle, ready to lead the field around to their places on the starting grid. While they do that, let's take a closer look at the circuit here at Exhibition Place. 1.721 miles around with lots of places to pass. Let's take a lap with Neal Crompton.
Here comes one hot qualifying lap in the Honda Accord, down to turn 1 from 6th gear, 5, 4, 3, and then 2nd gear across turn number 1. Up to 3rd gear. Notice the shift light just above the steering wheel, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then ultimately 6th down this very, very long back straight. Top speed in the Tasman Motorsports Honda, 145 miles an hour. Now, starting to position for braking down here. This is critical. There's the shift light. We're at 8,500 RPM. Hard on the brakes. Right back down to 1st gear. Watch out for the bumps on the concrete pad. Stay to the right of circuit. Down to 35 miles an hour through turn 2. Up onto the plateau for turn number 4 now. Bumpy once again, lots of understeer. Look at the steering wheel. Out of 2nd gear, up to 3rd gear. Notice the shift light. Long right-hander now. Right up against the concrete wall. Here comes the open. Up to 5th. This is a blind right-hander now, extremely fast as we head down the back part of the course at 130 miles an hour. Hard on the brakes, down to 2nd gear. Again, a lot of understeer across these concrete pads, using all the circuit. Real twisty stuff here, up to 3rd gear. Now starting to build a run towards the main straight. This is critical to the lap speed. Up to 4th gear, using all of the road. There's the apex coming right up against the concrete wall, so close. Then 5th gear, then 6th gear, and that is a hot lap of Toronto.
Well done. Thank you, Neal Crompton. The field making its way around the circuit. They'll pull to their positions on the start grid. When they come under starters' orders, the Hella Light Board will send them on their way. You see pole sitter Dominic Dobson to the left of screen, pulling into position. Here's the starting lineup. Dobson and Peter Cunningham in a Honda on row 1. 7th straight pole for the Pac West Dodge boys. David Donahue inside row 2 in his Stratus, alongside Neal Crompton. On row 3, we will have David Welch, his privateer Ford, alongside Randy Popes, the defending series champion in the CEC Andera BMW. Darren Law will have his BMW inside row 4, alongside the Mazda of Bob Shader from Colorado. On row 5, Desiree Wilson back in her Mazda for the first time since the season opener in Long Beach. She'll be alongside Doug Beatty making his season debut, and Roberto Quintanilla, who showed up for our most recent race in Cleveland but had horrible computer problems. They've got that car working now, and the veteran from Mexico is at the back of the field. The field is now set. We have the green flag from the back of the grid. We are under starters' orders. The RPM will come up to the red line at 8,500. The drivers will drop the clutch for the one and only time in the race, and we will be away. There's the light board at the upper right. We have red, we have green, and the field is away. Big launch from the second row for Neal Crompton. Coming up the inside, Randy Popes way to the right of your screen. To the inside, David Donahue. But pole sitter Dominic Dobson will lead the way into turn one. And immediately you notice the difference between our most recent race weekend in Cleveland, with wide open spaces and grass all around the airport runways. Nothing to hit if you go off. Here, very different. 8,000-pound concrete blocks standing on the curbs to collect the unwary. Cunningham up the outside on the long Lakeshore Boulevard straightaway. Hard braking for turn number 3. Uphill right-hander over a concrete patch. And have a new leader as Peter Cunningham sticks his Honda Accord out front. David Donahue and Randy Popes. There is Neal Crompton, sporting new sponsorship on the McCormick Line's Tasman Honda this weekend. Canadian Labatt Breweries are on the car for this round and the Canadian stop in Vancouver later this season. Crompton has gone backwards in the field. Darren Law has gotten around him as well as Randy Popes. Michelin pilot radials on all of the cars, squealing as the drivers work them hard in the turns. On board with Randy Popes, the Hitachi onboard camera at the start, running down to turn 1. He's going to try the outside. That's Cunningham just ahead. Look at the close quarters dicing. Very strong move by Popes. He didn't gain a whole lot of ground, but when you're out there, if someone has a mistake to your inside, you can find yourself in the concrete very easily. So here's Desiree Wilson with crash damage at the right front corner of her Mazda. And it appears her race is run. But remember, this is the first of 2 races. She'll have a chance to get that car repaired and come back. Dominic Dobson had retaken first place from Peter Cunningham. Now Cunningham in the white Honda Accord comes back, but he can't do it this time around. There is Wilson parked up against the concrete. Tough break for the woman who has won a Formula One race in her varied motorsports career. Randy Popes now dragging something, and Darren Law smoking heavily. Up front, Dominic Dobson now able to put a car length or 2 on the second place Bishop Peter Cunningham. Then David Donahue, Randy Popes, and Darren Law in very close quarters. We'll be back to Toronto in a moment. The Super Touring Championship from Toronto is being brought to you by Circuit City. Hurry in to Circuit City. You can't get a better price. We guarantee it. To Exhibition Place. There you see the running order in Race 11 Super Touring Championship. We are under a full course caution as Desiree Wilson's Mazda is pulled off, suffering from crash damage. Take another look and see what happened to Desiree Wilson in just a moment. She returns to the championship for the first time since the season opener at Long Beach, and as you can see, the problem, the right front corner. She took the wall hard. Here she is running behind Roberto Quintanilla. And she just appears to understeer to the right into the concrete. She's standing by now in the pit lane with Chris McClure.
Desiree, I'm really sorry to see you out. A short run. What happened?
I think it's very disappointing that we're out, that the Mazda's out. And I think I'm very disappointed because Quintanilla did not know the racetrack at all. And he passed me down the back straight. Honda's, a bit quicker than the Mazda. Smoked everywhere under braking. Chopped me in every single corner, wouldn't let me by. And made a big mistake coming into the fast section here. And the first of the fast 3 corners just slammed on his brakes in front of me. So I pulled aside and tried to pass him down the right-hand side, which was a perfect move. The accelerated. The only thing is then he moved on over me. And literally I had nowhere to go but hit the wall.
Desiree Wilson, she's out. She's angry.
No one likes to find themselves out of a race on the first lap, which brings me back to my point about racing on a temporary circuit like this. There is no margin for error. The green flag waves. We are back underway, and quickly Dominic Dobson opens several car lengths over the pursuing Honda Accord of Peter Cunningham. David Donahue runs third, Randy Popst in fourth, then Darren Law, Neal Crompton, and David Welch. On to Lakeshore Boulevard, fastest part of the racetrack. And then heavy braking for turn number 3. Randy Popst with Law just behind him in a pair of BMWs, the only rear-wheel drive cars in Super Touring this season. Popst still dragging a piece off of his rear bumper. There you see it as he negotiates turn number 5. All week long, the drivers have complained about the concrete patches laid down at the corners because the asphalt simply cannot take the stress of these incredibly quick cars. So concrete was laid, but the concrete is much more slippery than the asphalt. Like most temporary circuits, as the track rubbers in from the passage of the race cars, the track will get quicker, but the concrete does not take on the rubber as quickly as the asphalt does. The drivers say it is diabolical going into these corners. You know you're going to slide, you just don't know how much. There's a look back under the rear wing of Darren Law's Intrax BMW, and now looking forward from the newly liveried Labatt Blue Honda of Neal Crompton, who passes Law. And just ahead now, Randy Popst in the CEC Andorra BMW on Lakeshore Boulevard. And Crompton will look down the outside of Popst. Can he get him? Yes, under power. The Honda goes around the BMW. So Neal Crompton is charging through this field. BMW, a power in worldwide Super Touring. But we haven't quite seen the full impact of the German manufacturer here in North America yet. Popst still dragging that piece of bodywork. Still smoke off the tires of Law's BMW. These cars are so stiff, even stiffer than Formula One machinery, the engineers will tell you. And as a result, they will raise one wheel off the ground in these very tight temporary circuit corners, or when they hop the curbs of the permanent road circuits. A little bit of right foot corner damage to Law's BMW. That tells you something else about the rough and tumble of the street circuits. Now on board the Infinity Silicon Graphic Dodge Stratus of David Donahue in third. Whoa, he goes right by Peter Cunningham in 1. You saw the Honda Accord's brake lights flash. None of that for David Donahue, who sweeps through into second place behind his teammate in the PPG Dodge Stratus, Dominic Dobson. So it is Dodge, Honda, and Honda now. Now Cunningham, back on the power, drives around the Dodge of David Donahue. Hard braking now for turn 1. Here comes Cunningham across Donahue's bow and takes back second place. Great stuff. Sharply uphill here. And turn number 5. Donahue right there. Passing is going to be difficult from here down to turn 1. But he's presenting his car in the right-hand rear-view mirror of Peter Cunningham. Then Crompton and Popst. There's Cunningham in the Honda America Racing Team Redline Oil Accord, a volunteer effort based at Honda's production and engineering facility in Ohio. Dodge, Honda, then 2 BMWs. We'll be back to Toronto. Back at Exhibition Place in Toronto, Canada, race 11 of the Super Touring Championship. Bob Varsha, Chris McClure with you. David Donahue all over the rear bumper of Peter Cunningham's Honda Accord for second place, behind race leader Dominic Dobson. More than 300 horsepower from 4 or 6-cylinder 2-liter engines revving to 8,500 RPM. These cars will accelerate from 0 to 60 in a touch over 4 seconds. IndyCar braking systems, lots of carbon fiber, sequential gear shifts, a variety of transmissions, as well as engine variety in these cars. And the engine set down low and deep in the chassis to help with weight and balance considerations. The front-wheel drive cars, basically everyone but the BMWs, get a slight weight break. They weigh 55 pounds less, but that's a double-edged sword. You can use excess weight, move it around in the chassis to help with the balance of the car. There's David Donahue coming off the exhilaration and disappointment of our most recent racing weekend in Cleveland, where he first had a shot and then lost that shot at the $50,000 Dodge Triple Crown bonus. The Dodge Stratuses, Ford Donahue and race leader Dominic Dobson, the only American-built cars in the series at the moment, built at Chrysler's high-technology facility in Auburn Hills, Michigan. You see the drivers sitting very close to the center line of the chassis in the Dodges. Now here's a good battle. This is for fifth, the two BMWs of Randy Pobst in the CEC Antera machine and Darren Law in the Concord Transportation BMW. Side by side, right-hander coming up, squirming under braking is Randy Pobst. And Darren Law takes the position away, so Law is up to fifth. Pobst, the defending series champion, back to sixth. Now they look similar from the outside, but these cars were built by different constructors. You ride with Darren Law in a chassis built for the Italian Super Touring Championship in 1995. It was driven by Gianni Morbidelli to third. Pobst's car built by McLaren Cars for the British Touring Car Championship. While we're on the subject of technology, here's Chris McClure with a look inside a Super Touring car.
The braking power of a Super Touring car is simply awesome. In the case of Pete Cunningham's Honda, it's really beefed up. But let's compare, first of all, to a stock brake system. This is the right front of a Honda. Of course, you have the rotor. It's vented. Some braking area, plenty for a passenger car. The pads are semi-metallic. They are 2 per corner of the car with a 1-piston caliper. But now you start stepping up to a race application. First, the rotor grows considerably with great big braking surfaces. Let's go to the race car for the rest of what we will find underneath Pete Cunningham's car. We have the big calipers here, 4 pistons per. So there are 8 pistons on these calipers on the front. We have the Hawk brake ferrocarbon pads. There will be 4 of those per wheel, and of course the great big rotor that's vented to get rid of some heat. Now under braking, Cunningham will pull about 1.6 G's in full stopping mode and generate 12 to 1300 degrees Fahrenheit in that system.
All right, thank you, Chris. The teams have varying ways to deal with all that heat. Peter Cunningham's car you just saw uses air cooling of the brakes. The team car, which is not racing this weekend, built for the Japanese Super Touring Championship, uses water cooling. Neal Crompton is closing up on David Donahue. We have a 4-car breakaway up front. Behind these 4, Randy Pobst and Darren Law continue their tussle over 5th place. Neal Crompton looking down the outside of David Donahue for 3rd with the right-hander coming up. He may be setting him up to try to pass him off the corner on the uphill section leading to turn 5. Not this time around. Into the very fast but very narrow section, turns 7, 8, and 9. You heard Neal Crompton earlier say speeds up to 130 miles an hour in this section of the course, just missing that concrete barrier, driver's left, and swinging through the right-hander 8, and then back across the track for 9. All of the cars on Michelin Pilot radial tires, great big 19-inch in diameter wheels, very low aspect ratio tires, helping the handling of these cars. The Hitachi onboard camera of Neal Crompton, helping the handling of these cars. The Hitachi onboard camera of Neal Crompton, the Labatt's Blue McCormick Lines Honda Accord, looking for a way around David Donahue. Can he get it in 1? Yes, it appears that he has. Swinging on to Lakeshore Boulevard. 3rd place for Crompton, demoting Donahue to 4th. Hear that whine from these engines at top revs. All of them running on Texaco Clean System 3 gasoline. Unleaded fuel. These cars are required to use full muffler and catalytic converter systems. Now let's get down to the pit lane. Chris McClure is standing by with a timing question.
Bob, just out of curiosity, we wanted to know, were they backing up to Neal Crompton, or was he catching up and forcing the issue? His lap charts tell us that. One of the men on the team has been keeping track of it. Lap 7, 17.5, and lap number 12 just before the pass in the high 15s.
And that is amazing, Chris. The high 15s are where we qualified for this race. But that, too, is in the nature of street circuit racing. As the rubber builds up, the cars get stronger and faster as the day goes on. We've got a break straight ahead. Dominic Dobson leads Peter Cunningham. Dodge and Honda. Honda and Dodge in the top four. Stay with us. Back at Exhibition Place in Toronto, Canada. Race 11 of the Super Touring Championship. Dominic Dobson leads in his PacWest PPG Dodge Stratus over Peter Cunningham in the Hart Redline Oil Honda Accord, and then the Labatt's Blue McCormick Lines Honda Accord of Neal Crompton. And Crompton has come roaring up from 5th place. He is now 3rd and looking for a way around into 2nd place, but he'll have to be very careful. This was the matchup that led to the controversy on the second race of the weekend on Belle Isle in Detroit, Michigan, where Neal Crompton ran into the back of Peter Cunningham attempting to pass on a street circuit. Eventually, Crompton also got into David Donahue and was excluded from the results and points of race 2 in Detroit. Through turn 3, uphill right-hander, very steeply uphill. Further back, running 5th and 6th, Darren Law and Randy Post. There is Law, the chief driving instructor at the Bondurant School of High Performance Driving in Phoenix, Arizona, followed by Randy Post. There's David Donahue in 4th. We go back among the front runners. Neal Crompton, who swept the season opening races on the streets of Long Beach, California. What a debut in Super Touring here in North America. But make no mistake, Crompton is no rookie in touring cars. He's driven them for many years in his native Australia, including perhaps the best-known touring car race in all the world, the Bathurst 1000. Last year, this race was dominated by Honda power. Right now, we have a Dodge up front, then a pair of Hondas, and then a second Dodge. Debris fence rattling as the cars come rocketing past. Down in the pit lane, Chris McClure is standing by with Steve Costello for PacWest Dodge Touring Car Operation. Chris?
Steve, a couple of questions real quick if I could. First, David Donahue, after Neal Crompton got him, he kind of backed off a little bit. Is there something off with the car?
He's picked up a bit of a push. Right now we're just kind of saving the car and hoping for race 2.
And in the front, you have, of course, Dominic Dobson. How important is this moment to you here in Toronto, given what happened a year ago with the Honda versus your team?
I'm really encouraged. I mean, we're running out front here. It's a real good, strong race. I'm really pleased.
And it's easy to see why. Dominic Dobson and David Donahue run 1st and 4th. Oh, big cloud of tire smoke there from Peter Cunningham. Perhaps looking at his mirrors at Neal Crompton just a bit too long. Got on the binders a little too strongly. Dancing on the edge of traction here around the streets of Exhibition Place in Toronto. White flag waves. It's been 4 races since Dominic Dobson's last victory in Super Tour. Here comes Crompton down the inside of Cunningham for 2nd, and he takes it. Now can Cunningham respond off of turn 1? No. Crompton moves to the driver's right, a defensive line that allows him to nail down 2nd spot with 1 lap to go. Now the Tasman entry. Over to the right to deny Cunningham the proper line into turn number 3. Keep in mind, these two men are not teammates, but they both drive Hondas. And the Michelin Manufacturers Cup will go to the Manufacturers Champion at the end of the season. They need to score points for Honda, which leads Dodge for the moment. That could go up in smoke with these two wound up in a contretemps here on the closing laps of race 1. There is Dominic Dobson, who told us before the race began, I'm coming off 2 long weekends of poor performance. I need to get a good result. It appears he will. Off of turn number 10 into number 11, the checkered flag awaits for Dominic Dobson, who will pick up his 2nd victory of the Super Touring season, and with it, valuable points for both himself and for Dodge. Neal Crompton finishes 2nd, Peter Cunningham in 3rd. There's Darren Law, And David Welch had gotten around Randy.
What's up?